Considered to be one of the most powerful gods in the Greek pantheon, Poseidon is one whose legend is just as complex, maybe even more so, than his more popular brother Zeus. Some may not even know that he was also just as bad, if not worse, than his younger brother. That said, what do we expect from someone who was swallowed whole by his own father upon his own birth? Following the assumption of his throne over his own realm, Greek mythology tells us that Poseidon was exactly like his own realm, deceptively calm, with an incredible power to wash away those who stand before it indiscriminately. Add a vicious temper that never hesitates to temper revenge on anyone, even those who worship them. Greek mythology tells us that Poseidon is just as calm and wicked as the unpredictable seas. Origins of the god of the sea. Many of us may have had to endure horrific upbringings, but we hope yours is not as terrible as that which Poseidon and his siblings had to live through. You see, Poseidon was the fifth child of the Titans known as Kronos, the leader of the Titans, and his older sister Rhea. Don't worry, guys, inbreeding is the least of your issues when it comes to Greek mythology. In fact, it looked as though Kronos had to worry about a family curse of his own, and such fears would trigger a reaction that brought forth much of Greek mythology as we know it today. You see, Kronos was the son of Uranus, the personification of the sky and one of the Greek primordial deities, and his mother Gaia, the personification of the earth. Afghan incest is the order of the day in much of Greek mythology. Gross, but thanks to it, we got 12 Titans, including Rhea and Kronos, the three Cyclops, and the Hecatoncheires, also known as the 100-handers. Although you would think they made one big happy family, things weren't going well in this massive household because Gaia discovered that her son-husband wasn't too pleased with this weird family unit. What does she do? She recruits her youngest son to castrate his father with a sickle. Once the dirty deed was done, Kronos assumed the throne as the supreme commander of the cosmos. However, this came at cost. Turns out he was cursed to be overthrown by his own kids as well. Rather than avoiding having kids, Kronos popped out 6 kids with Rhea: Demetria, Hestia, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. So what was the logical solution? Swallow them up. This almost worked until Rhea was tired of watching her husband swallow her kids whole. When Zeus was born, she stole him away, and the rest is history. Once Zeus grew up and was able to overthrow his child, eating father for good, the 3 brothers split the domain among themselves. As we all know, Zeus got dominion of the sky, while Hades became the lord of the underworld after drawing straws. As such, Poseidon was left to take over as the god of the sea. Armed with the trident gifted to him by the Cyclopes, Poseidon's reign proved to be one that would be etched on pages of mythology forever. This would begin a tale that could be as thrilling as it could be terrifying, because while Poseidon could be kind to those that worshipped him, he has proved time and time over to be a violent and petulant deity, always eager to take his anger out on all who crossed him. Amphitrite and the Delphin. Let's start off with how Poseidon got married. You see, Poseidon had an interesting approach towards women. Yes means yes and no means yes. This would come into play later on. You see, even when he let Amphitrite, an ancient sea goddess and nymph, she let him know that she didn't want that at all by running away. Rather than taking his L and going back home, he decided to send his dolphins after the nymph. These dolphin-like spirits went and fetched her for the sea god. Although some tales tell us that she was taken against her will, some accounts have it that one of the dolphins managed to convince Amphitrite to get married to Poseidon. This dolphin even officiated the wedding, if you can believe that. They do say that dolphins are quite intelligent, so go figure. As a result, Poseidon rewarded the dolphin by putting him among the stars. Another product of this union came in the form of the offspring that the pair would have over time. Together, Poseidon and Amphitrite would have Triton, a merman that was often confused for his father because he carries a trident of his own and a daughter known as Rhodas, who just happened to be the personification of the island Rhodes. The affairs. Despite having what seems to be a happy family, Poseidon proved to be similar to his brother in the sense that he also liked to step outside his marriage. However, Greek mythology tells us that Poseidon may have an arguably more violent streak than his younger brother. In fact, we can even say that the only reason that Poseidon's evil streak may not be well known is because Amphitrite wasn't as violent or as vengeful as Hera. For starters, there was what he did to his own sister, Demeter. Enamored by the goddess of agriculture, Poseidon made a move on Demeter, but unfortunately for him, she wouldn't have it. Eager to escape from the situation, Demeter fled the scene by turning into a horse. However, this may have been a bad decision because Poseidon also happens to be the god of horses. It didn't take too long for him to turn into a stallion that chased Demeter before having his way with her without her consent. Enraged by what happened to her, Demeter took her anger out on her children. These children were Arion, the black-winged talking horse that eventually became Heracles' stead, and Despina, the bitter daughter who hated her mother and father because they both neglected her. Due to this overwhelming hate for her family, she freezes the world into the winter for a few months in the year. Talk about an ice princess. Rivalries. Feud with Athena. Suffice it to say, Poseidon didn't have a great relationship with his family. Take a look at how he made enemies with his niece Poseidon. At some time, there was this city known as Cecropia. At some other point in time, both Poseidon and Athena vied for the patronage of this city. Eager to win this patronage, the pair agreed that they would each give a gift to the people of Cecropia. Hoping to impress the people and their king, Poseidon went first. He struck the ground with his trident and wowed everyone with the spring that emerged. However, the water was salty, and although this did give the city access to the sea and trade, the people were more impressed by the olive tree that was given to them by Athena. They were more taken by this novel plant that would give them food and the ability to make fire. As you can imagine, the people of Cecropia chose Athena, and today, that city is known as Athens. However, another after effect was that this created an eternal enemy for Athens and their patron. In Trage, Poseidon sent a massive flood to the Attic plains. Even those who worshipped Athena were not able to avoid the wrath of Poseidon. Upon coming across a virgin who was dedicated to Athena, the god of the sea descended upon the poor maiden right in Athena's temple. Enraged, the misguided goddess took out her anger on the poor young woman who had just been a victim of Poseidon's vile act. Misguidedly, Athena turned the poor young woman into the snake-haired Gorgon that turns men into stone. Today, she is popularly known as Medusa. In time, the adventures of Perseus will lead to the beheading of the seemingly misunderstood Goron and the eventual birth of Pegasus, the winged horse in Chrysaor, a young man that had a golden sword. The tale of Perseus and Andromeda. As if that wasn't bad enough, there was the time that Poseidon tried to destroy an entire city because someone claimed that their daughter was the most beautiful woman in the world. Our braggart was Cassiopeia, the wife of Cepheus, the king of Ethiopia. She was going on and on about how beautiful her daughter, Andromeda. She went on and on and on, so much so that at one point, she claimed that Andromeda was more beautiful than the Nereid, 50 beautiful daughters of the old man of the sea, Nereus. This proved to be a huge mistake because not only were these sea nymphs loved by all because they are believed to be helpful to sailors as they make their voyage across the seas, guess who just happened to be one of the Nereids? If you guessed Amphitrite, you guessed right. As you can imagine, it made sense for the angry husband to send a flood and sea monster to destroy the city of Ethiopia. Hey, any decent husband would do the same thing. I don't care what you say. Hoping to appease the angry god, Cepheus and Cassiopeia decided that it made sense to chain Andromeda up and offer her up as sacrifice to Poseidon. Luckily, Perseus figured it made more sense to get Medusa's head so that he could turn that nasty sea monster into stone. Salvation. Such tales, and many others that we don't have time for today, show that Poseidon was not one to be messed around with. So how does he have a better reputation than Zeus? Maybe it was because he seemed to take care of those who worshipped him. For starters, there were the fishermen who would offer bulls to him in order to have a safe journey when they went out to fish in the sea. However, this Olympian must be acknowledged for the vindictive god that he is. At least we all know now that we are not to mess with Poseidon, the trident-bearing vengeful god of the sea.